This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
I was trying to get it how I live. I want them dead presidents. I want to pull up, head spin, get it, get fly. I got 6 jobs, I don't get tired. I don't get tired.
And we're still not tired on this week's episode of Two Bad Hombres. I'm your host, Vito Geronimo Chirk, alongside my usual sidekick and broadcast partner and fun. That is the Doc from Doc and Jock, John Charles Maroon. John, how are you doing?
Vito, welcome to the weekend. Looking forward to another recording of Two Bad Hombres. Lots to get to this week. What do we got on tap?
Well, really quick, once again, I want to shout it out. The 4th annual Chirco & Company charity softball game is taking place Saturday, August 3rd at a place to be determined at a future time and place. Or future date, really. Anyways, we have to talk about the Super Bowl. What happened? 13-3, lackluster game and outcome, even with the mighty, tough, and vaunted and dynastic Patriots coming out on top over the LA Rams. But the viewership was down at, what, a 10-year low? I mean, so the numbers weren't good for the NFL in terms of, well, ratings and people that strictly watched the game. In New Orleans, people were protesting the game still. After the NFC title game, did not go in favor of the Saints, and there was that no call, a call that should have been made against Nickel Roby-Coleman, defensive back for the LA Rams. And, he had a defenseless receiver. No call was made there, and you come to the Super Bowl and you get a 13-3 game in which the offenses were overall-wise lackluster. Even from Tom Brady, TB12, Tom Terrific was not even great. Was very average, but was better than Jared Goff. That's what it came down to, in my opinion. And Jared Goff, the moment got the best of him. It was too large for Goff at this point in his career. Still relatively young in the prime of his career. And you would have to imagine and believe that Jared Goff will get better moving forward and will be ready for that moment if it does occur for the Rams again next season. So I think the Rams are still a team that will be relevant moving forward and could be on the rise depending on the play of Goff and Todd Gurley, who was a no-show and pretty much MIA in the Super Bowl. But with the two of them, that dynamic duo on the offensive side of the ball for the Rams, this team, led by Sean McVay, the offensive mastermind and genius that he is known as, could do some big things moving forward, too. And, Doc, this could have been the last Super Bowl ever for Tom Brady and Bill Belichick together. And a topic outside of kind of breaking down the game as I just did, I just took advantage of the moment and broke down the game already from my standpoint, but also have to get into the fact that a lot of people now, Doc, as you brought up in this poll question at Detroit Podcast on Twitter, are watching the Super Bowl home, but also alone at home. So kind of getting into that topic as well and giving our thoughts on that as well regarding the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it was fascinating all around the experience. I seen that you went out with the fellas, had some beers, enjoyed the game, and it was really a tough game to watch all the way around. I had the opportunity to go out, but I decided to stay at home, made some food, went out, ordered some food as well, and my mother-in-law brought some food over to the house. So all in all, it was a good experience. I enjoyed it. I felt like, as opposed to going to the bar, it was a little bit better sitting at home in my PJs, chilling and having a good time with it. But the game sucked, man. Yeah, it was a tough game. It was awful all the way around. Everything in terms of the commercials, the game wasn't that great, but when I decided to see how people were going to watch it, I was kind of surprised. Obviously, it kind of split like 55-45, where 55% of people were either going to go to a party at their friend's house or they're going to host a party for people to come to their home. But about 45% of people said that the best way to view the Super Bowl was home alone, and I was kind of surprised by that. We got a significant number of votes on our Twitter page at Two Bad Hombres and at Detroit Podcast, and people said that, you know what, dealing with people on that day is just not something that's favorable. And I think I understand why. Right now, we are such a social society through social media. Everybody goes to work, and most people work in a team environment. That dealing with people sometimes is annoying, and you just don't want to, especially on a Sunday. You kind of want a reprieve, and a lot of people, I do sense that their weekends are spent chilling, kind of cleaning their home. If they're going to relax, they're going to want to do stuff by themselves, and sports fans sometimes maybe want to get into the game. If you're a Patriots fan or a fan of the Rams, you kind of want to sit at home and maybe scream at the TV, say some things without being judged, or having anybody ask you stupid questions, invasive questions. So I can understand that, but I was surprised because that is a day that I guess is known for parties and getting out and being social. But I do think that at this time, I think a lot of people will say, you know what, there's an advantage to sitting at home watching sports. I got a new TV, and I'm very proud of that, and I got to enjoy it. And I could say that, you know what, if there was nobody around, because I can be honest, my wife was a little bit annoying with the kids, giving directions and stuff like that. And I was thinking to myself, man, yeah, if she wasn't here, you know what? It probably would have been a better experience. So I can understand that part of it. But have you ever just sat and watched like the Super Bowl by yourself, just not take it in with any of your friends? It seems like you got like 5 or 6 friends that you roll with.
Well, no, I'm not a loner. I would have to say, I guess a lot of people via the At Detroit Podcast Twitter page for us are loners. This is really calling out some people and making fun of them. I know I shouldn't be doing that. But, I mean, it gives off that vibe. I mean, you said 45% responded to the poll and said they wanted to watch the Super Bowl game at home alone.
The best experience was the way it was worded was, what's the best way to take in the Super Bowl? And 45% said at home alone.
I mean,
is it weird?
You got friends? I mean, are you loners? Are you hermits? I mean, that's what sticks out to me when I hear that. 45% of our following at Detroit Podcast on Twitter responded to that poll question saying their best viewing experience is watching the Super Bowl home alone. I can see at home in the confines of your own house, your humble abode, but man, to watch it at home alone, I couldn't do that. Well, I would have to be with, right now I live with my parents, so it would be with my mom and dad and brother subsequently, unless they left the house for the Super Bowl to go watch it somewhere else. But realistically, I can't even watch it home alone because I don't live alone right now. But I would say, man, I like watching with somebody, with Nick or, my brother. So I would have watched it with somebody such as my brother still. So for me, I've always watched it with somebody. And to watch it alone is like, it's foreign to me, almost, Doc. And I can see, though, where from your perspective, when you have kids and a wife at home that really don't get into the Super Bowl and your kids are running around maybe and talking loudly and distracting you from watching the Super Bowl, well, it can ruin the Super Bowl experience. And you don't want that to happen when you're a big football fan and Super Bowl guy and want to watch it from start to finish, that you have your kids running around and distracting you perhaps as the game's going along. So I can see where you, from your perspective, you would have liked to have watched the game alone, maybe.
Yeah, I just thought that, you know what? It does provide you a little bit more comfort not to have to answer questions, not to have to, attend to someone's needs and things like that. And again, you know what happened? A closet door in my house broke the day before the Super Bowl. And so my wife that day obviously is super paranoid, wants to get it fixed right away. So she goes out on Super Bowl Sunday, gets the door. And of course, I'm like, come on, honey, I don't want my father-in-law to have to install it. And of course, it was complicated and things like that. But he's a great guy. He helped me out. We painted the door, installed it, and got it fixed. But I didn't want to do it that day. But of course, I was like, man, that's my luck. I'm like, I just want people to come over, sit down, talk sports, and hang out. But it just wasn't meant to be. But we got a chance to, obviously, because the game was boring, we just kind of went away and kind of came back to the game. And the experience wasn't, in terms of Super Bowl Sunday, I ate a lot of food. I was definitely full, but I didn't really enjoy it as much as I had in years past. The game experience last year was better, even though we were at a bar, in terms of the game, because people were excited. It was down to the wire. The Eagles had the opportunity to win the game, and people were shocked at, Philly special, and everything was crazy in terms of the game. So obviously you need a game to make the experience positive. And I just, all in all, the commercials wasn't a fan of. I wasn't a fan of, the halftime show. Wasn't a fan.
You didn't
of the
like
game.
it. See, I could tell via Twitter based on what you tweeted out, because it is you strictly or primarily tweeting out from at Detroit Podcast or Twitter page.
I watched the wrestling event that they had at the same time. I didn't watch Maroon 5.
I could tell you didn't get into it, but you're not a Maroon 5 fan. You're not a.
I missed Travis Scott. I missed SpongeBob. I missed all that nonsense. I didn't watch it. My wife definitely peeked in and she said, something's wrong. And I was like, yeah, something's wrong, because it sounded like, if you paid attention to it, it sounded like Maroon 5 was potted down. It didn't sound like they were blasting through the TV, and we had it up, and they didn't sound good, and the performance was kind of boring. It just wasn't exciting, and I didn't like it. So,
But do you not get into mainstream music and top 40 music? Is that why you don't like them and they're too poppy?
No,
what is it about Maroon 5 that you don't like?
No, I didn't like the way it sounded.
Or you just didn't like their performance at the
I didn't
Super Bowl?
like the acoustics of the way it sounded.
But you said you didn't watch it, though.
I did watch it.
Oh, you did watch
on.
some of it.
It was on. I have a laptop here, so
okay. So you still had it where you could see it.
I streamed
Okay.
wrestling on it and was paying more attention to that. But we watched the first 2-3 minutes. I'm like, something's wrong. It doesn't sound right. And she said something's not right with it. And they played older songs, and I liked
which I liked. I liked the Hazel
also,
Eyes and those older songs from Maroon 5.
But also, to me, my preference is recorded studio music as opposed to live music. I like going to concerts, but actually, you know what? You can tell the sound difference. I like produced music. coming through the earbuds as opposed to live music. I just don't find that there's too many great in terms of where I was like, oh, I was blown away. Where I was like, oh man, I could just download a song for $1 and play it and it sounds good. When you go live, it's just, I'm not into it. It just doesn't appeal to me personally.
Justin Timberlake last year. Did you like JT?
No. See,
I loved it, but I'm different than you.
I thought that, in terms of the performances and acts and things like that, it's fine, but, I think they can just do without it in terms of entertaining the crowd and stuff like that. I just don't feel like it was that interesting, and I think they can just do without it. I mean, they could give highlights. I'd rather actually, to be more of a geek, get the analysts and the panels and things like that. I was impressed with Bruno Mars when he did it. He was very entertaining.
He was good. People have loved him, rave reviews about that performance, and especially since.
Everyone remembers Prince when he was down in Miami.
Prince was terrific, even for a guy like me who's younger. Yeah.
So other than that, I wasn't impressed. I haven't been impressed too much with the whole Super Bowl experience. It's just too much.
I want to say this really quick. You can go without it. You'd rather have an NFL panel breaking down half, but can you go without Adam Levine and Maroon 5 taking off his shirt? I mean, I can't go without that. That was the highlight of the game.
Yeah, you like
for
that?
Women everywhere. For some men, I bet. I mean, the game was horrible, man. Where was the offense, John? People expected these high-octane offenses to score numerous points and, 3-4 touchdowns each at least. Where were the offensive attacks, and where was Todd Gurley? He went MIA completely, Doc.
Yeah, 100%. It was a situation in which it was a defensive game. If you loved, it was competitive, I guess. 3-0
Still, I guess, if you want to call it that, but it was horrible to watch. It was hard to watch. I would have turned it off. If it wasn't for the Super Bowl, it being the Super Bowl,
right.
I would have turned it off.
Exactly. The most interesting thing, I think, that came out of the Super Bowl is somebody actually in Vegas threw down $250 on the Rams to exactly score 3 points. You know what that netted them?
How much?
$100,000. That they plunked down $250 with the notion, the prop that the Rams are going to score exactly 3 points. You know the long shot of that? It's such a big long shot.
1,000,000 to 1 odds. I mean, it sounded so asinine, right, going into the Super Bowl based on the Rams and their offense.
I think it's 400 to 1 odds.
Well, yeah.
To get $250 to get $100,000. It's unbelievable that somebody was willing to do that. I didn't bet. I'm not big on gambling too much on sports.
How about prop bets or stuff like that? Because people do that. I know that was going on at the Super Bowl party I was at. I did not engage in it because I don't get into gambling.
Nope.
I'm a pure, clean man.
If I was, I would have probably took the over on the national anthem. I thought that
Gladys Knight.
Yeah, it was going to go long. She definitely put some, as we say, extra on it.
Yeah, some juice on it.
Yeah. But I like the ladies that did the America the Beautiful.
They were good.
Great.
Rave reviews for them.
They were good. It was really good. But all in all, the experience for me, I could have did without it. It was a disappointing end to the season. And I guess being that we're Lions fan, the added caveat is it kind of just felt like we were watching a Lions game.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel like it had any juice and excitement. I had more fun watching games at someone's man cave where it involved the Saints and involved the Chiefs. There were some good games that went back and forth and high scoring, and there were some classic Monday night games this year. Super Bowl didn't deliver, unfortunately. And
it was a dud.
But I do give people credit for being honest that maybe they just don't want to socialize on the Super Bowl. They just want to enjoy a classic football game by themselves and not be involved. But like I said, it was 55-45, but it was interesting that a lot of people did vote, and you can always check out our polls at Detroit Podcast and at 2 Bad Hombres. That's where all the happenings are. You can engage and get in on the process. But overall, you had yourself a good time?
Yes, besides for the game being a dud, it was an overall dud. Now, really quick, last year was a better overall experience, too. Also, to bring up really quick, Bill Belichick came out after the game and said that the Lions' defense really taught him how to, react to the Rams and how to play against the Rams and beat the Rams. How about that? Matt Patricia and company with the Lions helped the Patriots win the Super Bowl against the Rams.
It's not outlandish because Matt Patricia is a former defensive coordinator, worked with Bill Belichick, and the Lions did a decent job. They stopped the Rams a little bit. Obviously they lost the football game, but they were able to kind of do some things. And remember, in football, what's crazy, Vito, is that every single play is on film. Everything can be stopped, rewound. There's so much information that, we're part of the media now, and I can go to NFLcommunications.com. I can have access to every single play that was run in 2018 from every single team. There's so much information that's out there. I can understand why these coaches kind of get in at 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. and they stay till like 11 p.m. There's so much you can go over in terms of trends, in terms of who's going to run what play when. And some people are saying even that Sean McVay, basically in terms of the style in which he decided to implement in the Super Bowl, maybe kind of went away from just basic football. Just throw the ball out a little bit more. Just kind of stop being so regimented, and they kind of feel like, you know what? maybe Sean McVay overdid it and just went away from the basics of, hey, air it out a little bit, get back to the greatest show on turf and do some things. And it's just a situation in which right now, when you look at football, there's so much information, so much stuff that's going on that, hey, look, if Bill Belichick wants to call up one of his former assistants, I don't have a problem with that at all. I'm not surprised because, like I said, basically I think one of the easy things you would assume, right, is if the Rams play the Lions in 15 weeks, 16 weeks of the season, you're going to go look at who they played and who did what, and I'm sure he picked up probably a nugget or two, a mastermind like Bill Belichick probably picked up some nuggets from a lot of teams here and there throughout the course of the season. So I'm not surprised at all. And good for him to do that.
Well, think about this really quick, too. So the Lions beat the Patriots during the regular season. They almost beat the Rams. It's not like the Rams blew out the Lions at Ford Field either. So the Lions were close and or beat both teams in the Super Bowl this year. So does it say something about the Lions and mean something about the Lions and the direction they're headed in going into 2019? I don't know. But, I mean, you have to bring up and give the Lions credit that, yeah, they look solid against, or solid enough and came out on top against one of the two Super Bowl teams and almost beat the other, as the Rams once again did not blow out the Lions or just simply weren't in control and looked like this dominant team that would win the NFC when they played the Lions. So you can say that much about Matt Patricia and the Lions right now. And really quick, too, a commercial that I liked and wanted to bring up is the NFL 100 commercial. How about that? Barry Sanders was in there. All these great NFL players of today and yesteryear were in that Super Bowl, as well as Roger Goodell. I don't know if people really wanted Commissioner Goodell in that commercial, but he was. The football was being thrown around. Peyton Manning, Tom Brady was showing off his rings to Baker Mayfield. Barry Sanders was there once again. Emmitt Smith, all these legendary players, and that was a great commercial and perhaps the best one that I saw all Super Bowl long.
Can't argue with that. I think a lot of people took to it, and it was very good, and good for the NFL. I just think that in terms of the overall experience, could have been a much better end to the season. But, hey, good for them. It's on NFL if you want to go check it out on their Twitter page, and good for them. It was a good commercial. Obviously, NFL is going to celebrate 100 years. They just also got to kind of continue to evolve the game and continue to find ways to make the players safe, and we'll continue to go forward and see around town. Everyone's kind of just interested in what the Lions are going to do, and now we'll shift our focus to the draft and how the Lions are going to improve themselves, and that's what's going to happen. But I do want to talk to you about this before our commercial. Interesting news that was made just prior to the Super Bowl. It was interesting, too, in terms of the world of sports. The NBA made a lot of news in terms of trade rumors and trades that were executed. Very interesting stuff there to take away attention. And then the weekend of the Super Bowl, it was kind of released that Adnan Virk from ESPN gets blown out of his job. And I'm like, what? It got released, I think, on Super Bowl Sunday, where people started to recognize that the Friday before the Super Bowl, Adnan goes to work and he's at the campus and security has to escort him out. And people are like, what's going on with what happened? Adnan Virk had just signed a multi-year contract extension. He was very versatile, was hosting shows for college football, baseball. He was also a fill-in for Trey Wingo and Mike Golick in the morning. He was on a lot of things. He hosted a very popular movie podcast on the network, so he was obviously a guy in the mix. And it gets revealed that he gets terminated, not even a suspension. He gets terminated. What for, do you ask? Well, he was revealing company secrets to a media site. Now, he wasn't revealing secrets to a competitor. He was leaking secrets, obviously, in regards to Baseball Tonight and their schedule and what's going to happen with them and things like that. And he went to a site called Awful Announcing, which kind of reports on the media, and they have good podcasts, and they rate, and they sometimes are jovial and funny in regards to how media professionals do their jobs and things like that. But it kind of was interesting in that some people took to it and are on both sides of the fence in regards to, well, should he have been fired? ESPN kind of is known to leak information a lot of times. It's not really a big deal. But when you look deeper into it, there's a new regime at ESPN. They're obviously trying to rebuild the brand after a tough couple years, and they don't want information being leaked. And I think they set them up, that they kind of put out some information and they wanted to see who did it, and it was revealed that Adnan did it. And I was kind of surprised because, you know what, this is a guy that seemed like he was ultra professional, and he was broomed out. And I was like, wow. But for me, I go, well, I 100% agree with ESPN. If they set him up, if they wanted to reveal, who was doing this thing. And I think probably another aspect that maybe wasn't exactly reported, but I'm sure happened. You can speculate that. I'm sure they asked people, hey, are you releasing information? No, across the board. Maybe a memo goes out, you sit down in a meeting, and people are like, hey, are you guys doing this kind of stuff? And they're no. And then, okay, once you lie to the boss, then you're not trustworthy anymore and you got to get escorted out. And it's unfortunate for a guy like that to just go from one day being on the air to boom, gone from the network. But overall, I've told you this before, loose lips sink ships, and it's usually an offense that many people are going to get fired for. So I have no problem with ESPN doing it. I do think in a year or so, a company like Fox Sports will hire him. He'll be back.
He'll be hired easily by somebody else because he's
got
so talented. Yeah.
He's so talented, and he'll learn from his mistakes. But do you think he deserved a second chance or maybe a warning? Or do you feel like, you know what, if you reveal any company secrets, even if it's to the media, and in the end, I look at it like this, because it's a double-edged sword. If you do something like that, I probably wouldn't terminate you the first time. It'd probably be a suspension or a fine or something, make you pay me some money. But I would say this, because when you release information, that entity, Awful Announcing, is going to report on ESPN. So it's kind of like good press, that whole notion of all press is good press. So I don't see like it's like an awful thing. Now, if he was releasing disparaging information or releasing things that were slanted wrong, then you can go a little bit. But I just think he was just talking about the schedule and just releasing information factually. And it's done all the time, maybe for personal reasons or, you know what? Another thing I was thinking about as we were planning this podcast was, you know what? You got friends in the media. And if you can pass along information like, hey, for example, and I can freely say this, is that if something came along and I knew it was going to be breaking news and I had a feeling like it was going to get like 1 million hits, I probably wouldn't even put it on our platform. I'd say, hey, Vito, here's a story. Maybe take it to your editors. No problem. And it'd be technically a leak from me to you, but, it would be helping you out. And, I would do that for you if it was going to be a major story. Maybe not about the network, but at the same time, maybe it would be about some information. But I can understand where you want to help your friends in the media. Like you develop a relationship. Hey, I pass you along an information. You write an article. You get some clicks. Hey, your site gets an extra couple of subscribers. You're at ESPN. You're making big money, good money. You're living good in Bristol. So you pass along information because the journalism business is struggling. So I don't have a problem with it too much, but I can understand why ESPN did it.
Well, see, aren't reporters' careers based on leaks and reporting them? They get leaks all the time to get their inside scoops and to report breaking news. Adrian Wojnarowski, NBA insider for ESPN, Adam Schefter, NFL insider for ESPN. Guess what? They get leaks from inside these front offices of all these NBA and NFL teams respectively throughout those seasons, and that's how they break their news. That's how they become these credible, reputable reporters that break news day in, day out and become the top-notch go-to insiders for their respective pro sports leagues that they cover. Now, Adnan Virk isn't covering ESPN, though. He's not the sports media reporter for ESPN. That is Richard Deitch and, Jim Andrew Miller and other guys like that, Ed Sherman, Ken Fang. I know all these guys because I actually follow and check out Awful Announcing almost every single day. I love their work at awfulannouncing.com, and actually, I've applied to try to get a job and write there for Awful Announcing in the past. I would love to be able to do that, maybe still at some point in the future. But anyway, that's a topic for another day, as we're talking about Adnan Virk and whether or not he did something wrong. And I think it comes down to this, Doc, and it's the fact whether or not were there, parts of his contract that laid out clearly that he cannot leak stuff to news outlets, to websites about the inner workings of ESPN. Because this was something that I believe, from what I have gathered, that ESPN had just announced about Baseball Tonight not returning. But now that's because of Sunday Night Baseball moving up an hour to 7 p.m. So that was, known already. But I guess Baseball Tonight not returning to a daily schedule was not known. Adnan Virk, he leaked this to awfulannouncing.com. So this is where Virk, I guess, was erroneous in his judgment and in deciding to reveal the news of this magnitude to Awful Announcing, is what ultimately got him fired. And I know loose lips, sink ships, and you've told me that saying as well. But I think in this case, why fire the guy unceremoniously when you had just given him a multi-year deal? You know he's more than likely going to sue you now for wrongful termination. And if there's nothing clearly stated in his contract, in the language of his contract, that prevents him from talking to fellow media outlets about the inner workings of ESPN, guess what? He has a lawsuit that he can file to ESPN, and he will win that lawsuit. So ESPN is going down a dirty road that could get ESPN in trouble, at least financially, but also, I would say PR-wise, could look really bad and be devastating for ESPN. And that's why I think ESPN should have been leery of firing Adnan and should have decided not to. Instead, I think ESPN should have gone in the direction of slapping him on the wrist and suspending him for 2 weeks, something of that magnitude, Doc.
Yeah, he's filing a lawsuit.
And because that was going to happen. So because he's thinking, when he's reading and with his agents helping him out in his ears, they're saying to him right now that, hey, it's wrongful termination. You just received this multi-year contract from ESPN, and now they let you go unceremoniously for just leaking a couple of tidbits of info to awful announcing? I don't like that.
The sticking point will be that it's been done before, and
nobody's been fired.
Exactly.
To get fired. Now, suspended, people have gotten suspended. Why not suspend the guy? When he's a rising star at your network, you know he's going to go somewhere else now and do some big things too. So you lose this guy that was beloved. You know Richard Deitch? You follow him right on Twitter. He loves Adnan Virk. He will tweet all day long about Adnan Virk. There's people that just will bow down to him and praise him for days and days.
Well, why do you think?
And he's great. He's Canadian. They're both Canadian.
And yes, and he gives them information. He
and now we know for
Richard.
Sure. Richard Deitch was getting info as well from Adnan Virk.
Of course.
But he is good too at his job, and that's why he's gonna find employment somewhere else, and sooner than later. Now, the only thing is, with this multi-year deal that he signed with ESPN, will it now prevent him from signing at Fox Sports 1 in the future, NBCSN? You know, could there be that language in the contract that prevents him from signing somewhere else in the near future, which would suck for Adnan Virk?
Did you hear what Adrian Wojnarowski did? And he's obviously now a big name at ESPN.
Oh, yeah. I know you're going to bring up.
Yeah, he obviously had a relationship with Joe Dumars, and Joe Dumars got fined because what happened was, Adrian Wojnarowski was getting information from Joe Dumars in regards to information from the Pistons. And what happened? Adrian Wojnarowski then turned around and was favorable to the Pistons. And you have that inappropriate relationship, and you go, oops, you're not supposed to be getting that kind of information that's leaked and things like that. And the NBA actually, they set up Joe Dumars. And obviously, he got caught, and the NBA was like, oh, you're releasing too many secrets and things like that of the NBA's business. And Joe Dumars got fined at a hefty amount.
Okay, keyword, fined. Fined.
Yeah.
Adnan Virk could have been fined. He's making millions of dollars now as part of this new contract that he had just signed with ESPN. Find the guy. Suspend him for 2 weeks. I mean, Jamel Hill, remember, got suspended, 2 weeks or a month for slamming sponsors of ESPN. She didn't get fired. Could she have been fired? Was that more of a fireable offense? You could argue, right, that Jamel Hill, who ended up being let go, and they didn't actually let her go. They mutually parted ways, her and ESPN. She was never fired, and I think she actually created and was responsible for more fireable offenses than Adnan Virk with releasing this tidbit of info, which, how big in magnitude do you really value this tidbit of info that he shared with Awful Announcing? I don't think it is in that high of magnitude what he revealed to Awful Announcing, Doc.
Exactly. Well, let's take our first time out. Second half of the podcast, I want to ask you a question about LeBron James. I want to ask, do you think this guy is yielding too much power? He's trying to go into damage control. I'm sure you saw that photo of LeBron sitting at the end of the bench, and once it was recognized that he wants half the young talent traded to the Pelicans for AD, it does cause some interesting dynamics there, but I do think that it's worth talking about in terms of LeBron and his power that he yields in the NBA, and the fact that his agent also represents Anthony Davis, and the fact that they're trying absolutely really hard to bring Anthony Davis to the Lakers. Really interesting dynamics, and some young players obviously took to it in a bad way. The Lakers got destroyed by the Pacers in a game that everybody is kind of talking about. So we'll talk about that, and we'll finish the podcast talking about Liam Neeson, and kind of an interesting thing in terms of the dynamic of when you have a thought, sometimes you don't need to say it. And in 2019, the thought that Liam Neeson decided to reveal to everybody was a little bit raw and primitive, but I think it should have been unsaid. Now, we'll talk about that in the second half of the podcast. You're listening to Two Bad Hombres on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
This post Super Bowl edition of Two Bad Hombres is brought to you by our fine sponsor from Legacy Football. And the Legacy Football organization was founded in 2009. It is a premier off-season development program in the state of Michigan, in the Midwest, and in the entire U.S. of A. It provides unique platforms for student athletes on and off the football field through community service, social awareness, education, and football. And it consists of a staff of many former collegiate stars and NFL players, including legendary Lions wide receiver Herman Moore and a past guest of Two Bad Hombres and former three-time All-American linebacker at Michigan State University in Greg Jones. And Doc and everybody out there, to find out more info about Legacy Football and all of the events they are hosting in 2019 and beyond, please contact National Director of Football Ops, Justin Cesante, or go online today at www.legacyfootballorg.com.
Thanks again, everybody, for finding us. You can find all our podcasts anywhere podcasts are able to be downloaded. We greatly appreciate your support. All right, Vito, I'm sure you've seen what's happened now around the NBA. The trade deadline was awesome. Lots of exciting moves. Pistons made some moves and things like that, which definitely you can hear on the Fan Report podcast and Shane Norling's Monday Mashup. Definitely great work by the fellas talking basketball, Doc and Jock, and we touch on it here on Two Bad Hombres from time to time. But I think a lot of people are talking about LeBron James, and he's out there now on a tour to kind of repair his self-image. And the image right now that LeBron is unhappy with is the fact that people are viewing him as selfish, viewing him as a guy that will easily disregard talent and things like that. But at the same time, I understand those that will critique LeBron, okay? This guy does have a lot of power. LeBron, rightfully so, yields a lot of power. He is arguably one of the top 2 players in the entire league, okay? So he has the ability now to kind of yield some power. This guy is not just the 12th guy on the bench spouting off saying, I want this guy, I want that guy. When you bring LeBron James to your organization, you're going to ask him, hey, what do you want to play with? Who do you want to surround yourself with? What do you think will help you? And a guy like LeBron James, I think, deserves that. But here's the problem. In this day and age of leaks, like we talked about with Adnan Virk and your relationship with the media, LeBron has some good relationships with some at ESPN as well, and some of the reporters there at ESPN get some good information from LeBron. People are unhappy that it was reported, and I think New Orleans did an interesting job in terms of releasing some of the names that were basically made available, and the Indiana Pacer fans went to town. And what happened was the Lakers played the Pacers, and when some of the Lakers were shooting free throws, the crowd in Indiana was chanting loudly, "Bron's gonna trade you, Bron's gonna trade you." But the most nasty chant was left for JaVale McGee. You know what they chanted at him? Not worth trading, dun, 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 dun. Not worth trading, because his name wasn't on the list. They went there cold. The Pacer fans, I give you props. They were cold, and obviously the Lakers got blown out. And there's this, scene and a great photo where LeBron's sitting way on the edge of the bench, and there's like 3 seats in between him and the rest of the team. Now, it's happened a lot of times. This is not unusual, but LeBron's getting criticized because the young players that were named and implicated as potential trade bait for Anthony Davis to come to the Lakers are not happy. You're talking about Lonzo Ball, Ingram. You got guys that are young and impressionable, and they played horrible. And LeBron's being called selfish and things like that. I personally do not blame LeBron. It's a talented guy. He yields power. And when your boss comes to you, I'm sure Irvin sits with him and goes, what do you think is best? He's going to be like, okay, this guy can go, this guy can go, this guy can go. Make it happen. And you got to also remember that Rich Paul is the agent of LeBron and Anthony Davis. So there's a working relationship, and you realize that LeBron's trying to bring a winner to the Lakers. And so sometimes, you know what? Sometimes a trade's not a bad thing. And all these players get butthurt about their names getting in trade rumors. But guess what? It's a business. And yes, there is no loyalty. I can understand that. But privately, you got to realize at any time that in the world of professional sports, you're only good as the perception of what you can do. If there's a perception that somebody else can come in and do your job better, you're getting replaced. I mean, they're not trading for, you should be complimented. You're not getting traded for a bag of balls. You're getting traded for one of the top 4 players in the league. So look, you know what? You go from the Lakers to New Orleans, you're not happy, so be it. But you shouldn't pout. You should be professional because it's part of the business. Your name, you should be feeling complimented that, hey, they view you as an asset that somebody else wants you. Don't view it that the Lakers don't want you. View it that, hey, an organization might want to deal for you in the future. And I just think that LeBron is getting a bad rap for being called selfish. But here's the problem. In this day and age, similar to Adnan Virk, how does this stuff get out publicly? You know what? If you want to make a deal and things like that, and I know maybe New Orleans leaked it a little bit too because they're upset that AD was a little bit forthright and honest and saying, hey, I want to be out of here. I'm not going to sign. So then you can go, oh, you want to go to the Lakers? Let's just start leaking some information that will be detrimental to both sides. And I think maybe New Orleans was a little bit shady in that practice, but I don't blame them at all. And I just feel like what LeBron can do differently is find a way to handle his business without so much publicity, especially around the time of the trade deadline. Make your moves, make your calls, backstab whoever you got to backstab. But LeBron is at fault when this shit comes out publicly and you face the consequence of your teammates. It's your fault.
Now, my gripe with him is, why are you sitting by yourself at the end of the bench, too? You're the team leader, the highest paid player, right? I believe so on the Lakers. Clearly the best player, a 3-time NBA champion. clearly the best player in the league for a long time now, a guy that has won multiple MVP awards, and you dictate so much in the NBA in terms of you've really created a field of players leaving their teams for better, what they view as better opportunities, right? He's really created the opportunity that players have now and the ability that players have to leave. And, he's a large reason why guys will leave the team that drafted them for other teams. So you are a guy that people really mold themselves after, look up to, and you're the guy sitting at the end of the bench by yourself, really pouting, looking like a crybaby, big crybaby LeBron. And you're this guy that has all these, deals with entertainment companies. You have your own entertainment company. And once again, you're a model for the league, one of the icons of the league now and forever, all time greats is LeBron James. Maybe the best player of all time. You've declared yourself as the best player of all time already, better than MJ and everybody else that has come before you. And now you have the audacity to sit by yourself at the end of the bench. I mean, I just... Come on, man, you're a leader. You should not be doing that, and it looks very poor on LeBron's behalf. And I think it's a shot at his character, and it causes his character to dip a little bit when you're pulling acts like that, because you're part of a team that's full of young players, too. And young players that are still learning the game are looking up to you and learning from you. And then if you're leading by example, that's the example you're leaving for your teammates. It's not a good example to leave, Doc. And I think it's, a piss poor mark on LeBron's character and on him as a leader as well.
So your thumbs down on LeBron and the way he's acting. You don't think he should?
No, I mean...
Wouldn't you act that way if you were the guy that goes to Los Angeles? You're obviously the face of the franchise.
You're the man, yeah, but come on, sit by your teammates. It's your team. You're part of the team. Sit by your teammates. I would never go 3 chairs down and sit by myself at the end of the bench, especially when I'm the leader of this team and I'm the guy that everybody looks up to. I'm the guy that really everybody throughout the league, a part of all 30 NBA franchises look up to, especially if you're relatively young. And in the first couple of seasons in your NBA career, you're looking up to LeBron, and you looked up to him all your entire childhood, perhaps as well. He's been the guy you've been trying to beat as well if you come into the league. He's the guy you have to get past. And now, as a guy with all of that being said for yourself in LeBron, and you're willing to pretty much push your teammates aside and go sit by yourself at the end of the bench, once again, I just think it's piss poor, and it's an ugly mark on LeBron and his leadership ability in ways. I don't think it's a real leader, a guy that really wants to be an example for the league and his team specifically, should be doing that. It's not a great example to set for the rest of your team, which once again is relatively a young core. To a large extent, at least, is a young core.
Yeah, interesting stuff there in terms of the NBA dynamics. Do you think the players are now starting to yield too much power? You got AD kind of saying, I'm not signing, I want out. You have situations in which Porzingis went to New York, said the same thing. Players now have a lot more power. Do you think it's too much?
Well, I get why some players want out, from their respective city, like with the Pelicans in New Orleans. Well, he hasn't won anything there. But then it almost comes to a point, to a point in time when you have to maybe start believing that maybe this guy isn't the true leader of a team, or isn't the guy that can lead a team to the promised land. If he can't even, lead his team past the second round of the NBA playoffs, which is true for Anthony Davis in New Orleans with the Pelicans, well, isn't that kind of a negative mark on Anthony Davis's career then? And maybe it showcases to you and to everybody out there that Anthony Davis isn't a guy that you can build your franchise around. And I know you already have LBJ in LA, so you wouldn't have to build your franchise around Anthony Davis in LA if he were to be traded to the Lakers or sign with the Lakers in the offseason. But still, in the long-term future, Anthony Davis is probably your long-term play, simply the guy that you build around when LeBron's not there in LA. So once LeBron retires, it might be Anthony Davis's team. Now, Davis could go somewhere else by the point in time that does happen for LeBron when LeBron finally calls it quits. But still, I think you want to view Anthony Davis as a guy that you can eventually build around if you're the Lakers, with the mindset that LeBron's not going to be there forever. He's not going to be a Laker forever. Maybe Anthony Davis, once you sign him to a long-term deal, he is there forever. And then he becomes a guy that is truly your team leader, the guy that you want to build your franchise around. Has he proven to all of us out there now that, hey, maybe he's not the guy to build around because he hasn't had much playoff success in his career. Now, with the lowly Pelicans, who don't have the greatest supporting cast, and last year he did lead them out of the first round of the playoffs, but for his career as a whole, Anthony Davis doesn't have too much to prove in terms of NBA playoff success. Now, get back to your question and to answer it fully, I think guys have the right to move on to go from team to team. As a player, you should have that right, and they do have those rights, and they have the leverage, and they can play that leverage to the fullest and demand trades when they're a guy such as Anthony Davis and their team isn't winning, isn't going anywhere in the near or long-term future. So you have the right to call for a trade, but I almost don't like one thing that has come to mind as we're talking about this is Kyrie Irving and what he has said, kind of playing up his free agent status recently and talking about that midseason when he's on a quality team in the Boston Celtics already, a team that could come out of the Eastern Conference and represent the East in the NBA Finals this season. So I don't like that from Kyrie, but I can see why certain guys will demand trades and do want out and then do use their leverage to get out of town and do end up with another team in their career or multiple teams in their career. And once again, the point I was trying to get at earlier when talking about LeBron is that really LeBron has created that opportunity for the entire NBA because LeBron did it when he moved from the Cavaliers to the Heat originally. When he made that move, well, since then, that's created the opportunity and really the mindset for individuals in the NBA to be willing to make that move, to move on from their original franchise, and to better themselves by moving on to another NBA franchise that has a better chance of winning at that point in time, or to a team where they know they can form that big three. So I'm totally for players really being mobile and moving from team to team. And LeBron has really created that trend. And now we see it, yes, with Anthony Davis. He is looking to get out of New Orleans. Kyrie Irving might be leaving the Boston Celtics at the end of the season to join the Brooklyn Nets or the New York Knicks. So we see it more and more, and LeBron really created that trend. But once again, when talking about LeBron, he is the leader of this league, really. A guy that's won multiple MVP awards. He is looked up to by so many people in the league. And then you pull this move in a game and sit at the end of the bench. I just don't like it. I don't stand for it. And I think a leader such as LeBron should not be doing that. And guess what? I wouldn't be doing that as the leader of a team.
Makes sense. I just think that with LeBron, I do think that in terms of his relationship with the Lakers, we're recording this before the trade deadline officially ends. So if AD does not end up with the Lakers, I can't wait to see how the relationship plays out. Do they just completely fall apart? Does it result in the end of the regime for the head coach of the Lakers? And you realize, is Walton done? Is Luke Walton not going to be able to lead this team and bring him back from something really severe in terms of, that locker room? Because it's only 12, 13 guys, and sometimes you realize there's a lot of egos, and when it goes away, it's really hard to get back. It'll take a world-class effort if AD does not end up with the Lakers for that team to continue to trust LeBron and go forward. Now, to finish the podcast, really fascinating look at American culture, because Liam Neeson, famous actor, comes out and he kind of reveals in a story that, he knew somebody that was sexually assaulted, and he reported, and then he came out and said that he had this kind of carnal, revengeful thoughts of kind of wanting to just find any random black person and kill them. Well, he realized that
you just said it right now. Like, you think about it.
It's carnal.
Not only in hindsight is it bad, it's bad.
He said he was shocked at the nature in which those thoughts came in. But for me, I'm not surprised. I don't judge him, because the thing that's, honest is that we all have bad thoughts. Everybody every day has about 5,000 thoughts that stream through your brain.
Yeah, they can be negative too.
They can be negative. They can be crazy. They can be sadistic. They can be honest, raw. The thing that makes it really applicable is, do you act on it? So I don't judge Liam for, thinking it. But at the same time, how on earth in 2019 do you reveal that? And he said that he felt like that was the best way to get revenge, and he was shocked, and he had to reflect and calm down at the crazy ideas that he was having. But how do you reveal that? I just think that sometimes when you're in the public eye, there is a little bit of a line. We have a line. I mean, we don't reveal everything. I don't reveal, intimate details of my relationship with my family and stuff like that. I don't reveal how much money I bring in or stuff like that, or deep, dark secrets about every thought that I have. But we all have crazy thoughts sometimes, but the thing that makes us sane is those that become sadistic or become people that act out are those that act on those thoughts, okay? Because you're not going to sit there, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, you're going to judge Liam Neeson, think about it. How many times have you had a crazy thought? Maybe you're thinking about someone else.
I have, yeah.
Exactly. If you're a guy, you've thought about your neighbor, you've thought about something maybe that was inappropriate with another female, or you've thought about maybe just that one time, wonder what would happen if, I grabbed that $20 from my boss's wallet. What would happen? What would happen if I, maybe stayed at home and, on that Monday after the Super Bowl and call in sick when I'm not? We all have weird thoughts from time to time, but we don't reveal it publicly in such a big forum. And now he's faced consequences. And I think that's the part where in this day and age, you have to think about the consequences of what you say. And you have to understand that if you say something like that and you say it publicly, I think you told me before we started, his movie premiere was going to happen for the latest project he was involved in, and obviously the premiere kind of diminished and it didn't happen.
Yeah,
or
it bombed.
It was terrible.
And they canceled it, actually, too, because of this coming out regarding Liam Neeson.
Why would he reveal this? I don't
I
get
know.
the thinking. Why
like,
would
you keep it, like, we keep those thoughts, right, like, to ourselves. Now, I get being honest and providing candor and color, and that was usually colorful and too colorful. He shouldn't have done that. How stupid do you have to be? How old of an individual is this guy that is supposed to be this mature, grown-up man who has done movies and been in film and acting all throughout his life? I think throughout his, even, when he was younger, right? When he was kind of growing up, or a young man at least, he was acting too. So he's been acting in this industry forever and ever. And especially in the day and age of social media, when you say such things, it carries a lot of meaning. And it travels like wildfire, right? It will spread on Twitter, on social media, all over the social media outlets like wildfire. So if you say this, you gotta pay for it and deal with the repercussions. And he is dealing with a lot of outcry and a lot of negative public outcry right now. He even went on Good Morning America, talked to Robin Roberts, one of the co-anchors of the Good Morning America show on ABC Monday through Friday, and he was telling her, straight up these thoughts and apologizing for them. He wanted to make it known to everybody that he feels bad for having those thoughts and that he wants to apologize. But letting it out and be known out in the public, I mean, that was a bad move on his part, and PR-wise specifically.
Yeah, crazy stuff, man.
Yeah.
Do you think people will forgive him?
Well, I know one thing for him. It's something you don't move past very easily, and a lot of people at least, will never forget him doing this and forgive him for saying this and having these thoughts first and foremost. So those thoughts those are very negative thoughts and obviously racist thoughts. So people are deeming him a racist now. So maybe he's not, but some people are saying, oh, clear cut, you have those thoughts, you're a racist. So I know there are some people, Doc, that will never get over the fact that he had these thoughts and made this statement. I'm almost dumbfounded that he had the audacity to make this statement and didn't have like the knowledge and the aptitude to know that you just can't say this out loud to people. You've got to know better if you're Liam Neeson.
Okay, let's play some audio clips before we get out of here.
Liam Neeson opening up about a time in his life when he was overwhelmed with revenge and racially charged anger.
Well, it's an extraordinary admission from Liam. It happened as he spoke to a journalist from the UK's The Independent, and as he talked about getting into character for his new revenge film, Cold Pursuit. Now, the incident he describes occurred many years ago when a friend of his told him about a horrific crime that happened to her.
She told me she had been raped, but she handled the situation of the rape in the most extraordinary way. I asked, did she know who it was? No. What color were they? She said it was a black person. I went up and down areas with a cosh, hoping I'd be approached by somebody. I'm ashamed to say that. And I did it for maybe a week, hoping some black bastard would come out of a pub and have a go at me about something, so that I could kill him. And it took me a week, maybe a week and a half to kind of go over that. And it was horrible when I think back, but I did that. And I've never admitted that to it. I'm saying it to a journalist.
So why even say this? Liam, why did you say this, man? And then so it's a woman that he knows, right, he is friends with, that supposedly was raped, like came to him with rape allegations and whatnot. So the thought that comes to his mind, first and foremost, is that it's a black man. Then he wants to kill this black man, and he had this thought about killing this black man because of this incident related to a friend of his for a week. To have this thought even for a day or even for an hour or 30 minutes or a minute, is just erroneous on his behalf, and it does make him look rather racist. And maybe he's not, the biggest bigot out there, but it makes him look racist.
Man, Vito, that was scary. He's like,
and how he said it, like he's in the movie Taken. You're not acting anymore, man. You can't say this. You can say it in your movie role in Taken or any other movie and role that you've portrayed, but to say this out in the open from one human being to another, you just have to know, Liam, that you can't do this, man, and it's horrible PR on your behalf.
He had to go on Good Morning America and say, I'm not a racist.
Right?
I'm just a crazy
individual. Now he has to apologize like that, and he did the morning routine with Robin Roberts and told her that much, but for people to get past this, a lot of people are not going to forgive Liam Neeson even for having this thought, Doc.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just another case of sometimes you got to watch what you say, and he said it, like, I'm saying this to a journalist, and I do think sometimes people might be willing to reveal crazy stuff about themselves in the name of negative pub. They're like, look, we got a movie coming out. I got to get my name in the paper somehow, and people are forgiving, and sometimes people do think crazy.
But he killed the production over it, too.
Maybe, yeah.
He might kill his movie career over this. We've seen other guys with, sexual allegations, so maybe worse incidents or just allegations and things that have come out about them, such as Kevin Spacey, that have ruined their movie careers and acting careers subsequently.
I wanted to kill him. I wanted to come out of a pub and have him go at me.
You're not playing a role in Taken. You're not the guy in Taken or any other movie that you've been in, where you've been this action star and hero. You can't say that, Liam. And he's this guy that's how old? 60-something in his mid-60s? I mean, it'd be bad enough if I said it, or if a 15-year-old said it, let alone a guy that's in his mid-60s, Doc.
Two Bad Hombres lesson of the week. Don't fuck with Liam Neeson, because that guy's crazy.
No, he'll mess you up.
He'll mess you up.
Yep.
All right, good podcast recording. I had a good time, Vito. Enjoy the weekend. You can follow Vito on Twitter at Vito Jerome. You can follow the network at Detroit Podcast, the show at Two Bad Hombres. You can find our podcast anywhere podcasts are available to download. Check us out, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. We appreciate all the support and the banter. See everybody next week. Thank you for voting in our polls. Look for us. We're doing great things. See you, Vito.
Don't be so egotistical like LeBron. Be a good teammate, a better teammate than LeBron, and don't be a racist like Liam Neeson. I'll leave you guys with that.
And to kind of sum it up, if Liam Neeson has friends like that, maybe you just maybe you do need to stay at home alone and just watch some TV.
That's when you have to, Doc.
See you later.
Adios.